Okay. So we're back in public session. So back to our list, was come back to trustee Pei. You had additional questions for the public session.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As I understand, the staff does not recommend, the system plus fund approach, and open to trustees' decision or resolution for either mandatory or voluntary. Before I can make any decision, may I ask the staff, if we do mandatory, how we can do the mandatory, by the way?
How would we implement that?
Through you, Madam Chair, it would be a percentage off every dollar, net dollar earned in a fundraising activity.
Okay, thank you. Net dollar. Okay, if that's the case, how do you do audit for 587 schools? How many manpower you need to do this kind of audit to make sure they're accurate, transparent, accountable?
Through you, Madam Chair, we anticipate right now one additional staff member to help support the review and the work. We do have our school support team that we would task with some of this work as far as the training and support, but as far as the auditing and the accounting portions, we'd be probably looking at one additional staff position.
So, okay, so Madam Chair, when you mentioned that a school supporting team, who are they?
Through you, Madam Chair, we have a school support team led by Brandy Wallace that their duties are to support both school councils and schools in their budget questions, as far as questions with procurement or any other payroll questions. They have areas, let's say, that each of them cover, and they take any questions from our school principals, vice principals, or OAs, and they report through my department.
So how many people are they in the school supporting system?
There are 6 people in that department, I believe. I don't have the numbers in front of me.
The 6 people plus one extra person will be able to perform all the job for 587 schools for all their fundraising project. So what's the estimated project, a fundraising project per school on average?
Through you, Madam Chair, I don't have that information tonight because we do have the amount of fundraising that happens at a school, but what I don't have access to at this point in time is how many activities or how many events fundraise for those dollars. So we'd have to look at how many, Blue School had 5 events and raised 20,000 over the year, or Red School has 10 events and raised 100,000. There'd be a difference in the effort based on that kind of level detail data, but I do not have in front of me tonight the number of events that the school generated funds that came in this year.
So if we don't have the data, we don't know the number, how can I estimate how much work we're going to endure through the process? How do we know we allocate enough people to do this kind of auditing? How I can make sure all the auditing is accurate? How can I make sure all the numbers transparent, accountable to the parents?
For you, Madam Chair, a couple of ways. First of all, the additional person that I'm suggesting would be there to help, as well as the school support team, and working with Gary and the policy department as we develop the procedure, and then to create the supporting documentation and to go out and train the system. We also have our internal audit department that does random school audits on a regular basis. They are doing 25 audits of schools this year for enrollment, school generated funds, etc. So they would also be available to support this work as well. So again, if we found after the first year of doing this that we needed 2 staff, then we would put that into the budget for the following year. But our best estimates looking right now for the first year of this being in place would be one person.
Okay, 1% at what cost?
The cost for the salary and the operational expenses, I would estimate between 120 to 150,000.
Okay, for $120,000 and $150,000. Okay, how much is surplus fund, or how much you would estimate if we do the mandatory? How much fund we're going to pull into the system?
Through you, Madam Chair, I believe, I don't have the financial statements in front of me, but I believe the fundraising both at my school councils and school generated funds is about $40 million annually. So it would be based on what percentage we decide to use. I would suggest, I mean, a theoretical starting point for us to do the math would be 1%. So that'd be about 400,000 into the system equity fund. If we did 0.5%, that would be around $200,000 approximately.
Okay, for $200,000, what do you estimate in terms of if we implement this mandatory policy? Is that possible? The fundraising activity either going to be stopped or going to decrease. So if it's going to decrease or stop for certain schools, how much decrease of the fund is going to occur by this mandatory application?
Through you, Madam Chair, that is impossible to estimate because we don't know the what the impact, well, what the perceived impact will be by our communities as they fundraise and if they have to give portion of it to a central equity fund.
Yeah, also, we had to consider only net income, right? The $40 million you're talking about, like a total income, is not net income, right?
That is the gross income, you're correct.
Yes. So what the net income?
Again, through the chair, I don't have that information available this evening.
So if we don't have the number of that, it's net income, how do we know how much fund we're going to put into the system? How can you make sure your estimates are correct?
Through you, Madam Chair, what we would do if option A was approved in the report in front of you tonight is that we would start to do that work of detailed analysis. And as we wrote the procedure, when the report, we always sent for information to the GPC committee, the procedure, we'd also add into that document information about why we set the rate at whatever we set it at, with information around what fundraising has occurred, what net proceeds were, how many events occurred, and obviously our policies and procedures and our processes to make sure we're verifying the information, as well as our training and information materials for our school councils and our principals.
So, Mr. Chair, why we not get all the data first, then make a decision? I thought we're a data-driven institution, but without any data, we make a simple blunt decision here.
Through you, Madam Chair, because of the option of all voluntary mandatory, and that we felt was a decision that the trustees had to make, we did not want to put expert into a calculation that we would have possibly done for and didn't have the resources to put in at this point in time, not knowing the board's direction.
Okay, I was a school council co-chair for more than 2 years at Cloud School for the Arts. I have done a lot fundraising activity. I can tell you, my rough estimate would be the fundraising probably 50% will be the cost, or higher, going to be the cost. Okay, so let's assume $40 million, half the amount, $20 million is net income, times by 1%. That's going to generate $200,000 to the system. Okay, $200,000. But we had to pay a staff that it can be ranged from $120,000 to $150,000. We're talking about after we implement this, how much fund we're getting. Between 50,000 to 80,000 system-wide. If you divide by 587 schools, how much is that? $160. Is that kind of effort that we want to put into this?
So through the chair, I would say that your estimate of 50% cost on fundraising is probably high. But I also would say that, as we said in the first public session on this item, that the cost would be added to the board's budget, but it would not be taken away from the fundraising dollars that were donated, that we would use 100% of those dollars towards student outcomes, either through what the school fundraised or in the central fund would again go to 100% to support students. We do not want to take the cost of staffing or any other cost against the donations, as we feel that isn't transparent.
Okay, so Madam Chair, I don't understand why the executive officer Craig Schneider said my estimate number is high, the cost is high. May I ask him if he has ever been a school council co-chair or member, has ever engaged in the school fundraising activities? For me, I have experienced more than dozen activities through my 2.5 years as a school council co-chair at Clark Watson School for the Arts. I know exactly how much those fundraising activities are going to cost.
Okay, Trustee Pay,
Yeah.
your time is up. Do you want to go back on the list?
I want to go back. Thank you very much, madam. I have more questions to come. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Alexis? Trustee Dawson?
Thank you. Through the chair, can somebody please confirm what the language was of the motion that we originally passed regarding this issue? I believe it was staff to come back with options for a mandatory so I'm confused because I'm confused, so I'd like to understand the language, please.
I think, Trustee Dawson, if I can clarify that under what was proposed under A, the questions that options for mandatory contributions to the System Priorities Fund over a certain threshold of funds would refer to the legal opinion that was achieved on surplus funding. That would be where the surplus aspect comes in, and that's the legal opinion we got.
No,
Page 20.
what was the original motion to request this information? Like, what did we not ask staff to come back to us with options for a mandatory contribution?
What I have under A, that the matter we referred to staff on the following. That options for mandatory contributions to the System Priorities Fund over a certain threshold of funds raised be added to the policy.
Okay, so it was solely focused on that over a certain threshold, and we have received that response. Okay. I am just listening to Trustee Pay and trying to understand the same thing. You know, that this isn't really a proposal. So I understand that we are being asked to vote on A or B. However, I do not personally feel that A or B are detailed enough to make an educated decision on this, and that it is disappointing to me that trustees are then being expected to amend this with our own arbitrary complements to this this language. So adding in percentages, things like that, in order to make it more clear and understandable to us and transparent to the public. So it is disappointing to me that this has come back to us in this format, and that it will surely put us in the line of fire unnecessarily. So that's just I wanted to air that out. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Can I pass the chair?
Please go ahead.
Thank you. Not to make this more complicated, but would mandatory contribution also apply to in-kind donation? How would we assess that? I'm just thinking, I just got, like, because we do have to report technically under PSABs, like school councils and schools, our school, as a system, we account for, we offer, as a system, we would offer tax receipts for large contributions. And I'm just thinking, like, my kid's school just sent out a notice for the school asking for DPA bags. So for the designated physical activity, the school's supplies of stuff like sports equipment, balls, whatever, for DPA is old and tired, and they're looking to replace a lot of it. And so the school and school council are doing a fundraiser now, but they're not asking for money. Well, they're asking for money or that people stock bags, and they've made lists of grab and go DPA bags for that activity. But those all have value and is a fundraiser by the school council. So like, how do we then account for in-kind donations?
Through the chair, I think it would be impossible to account for in-kind donations. I think this would be applicable to the actual tangible monetary donations.
Reason saying it's not money.
Okay, thank you. That's my only question there. So we're back to trustee Pay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, I have a follow-up question through you to the staff. So I understand we're going to add one extra person to do the auditing. Also, we need the school supporting team. There are 6 people supporting this person to do the auditing. So what the percentage of amount of work does the school system team have to do?
This is too much detail.
Through you, Madam Chair, I would see the school support team primarily being that support to the schools and school councils in explaining, training, and helping complete the necessary forms. For example, if there's going to be a fundraising event, there's a mandatory contribution, help the principal or school council if they said, how do we write this into our fundraising plan? So the school support team primary role will be to support school councils and schools in enacting the fundraising policy and procedure. I see the internal audit department and this one extra person that I'm speaking of as being that audit function to verify that the money forwarded to the system and priority fund ties to what the receipts were at the school level. It wouldn't be an audit completely of every school, but it would be sufficient that we could do a large number of schools.
Yeah, but we have 587 schools for 6 people. So each person should take care of 100 schools. As I understand, every year there's going to be a new school council co-chair or chair be elected, or the council could be have totally different councils. So each person should be responsible for 100 schools every year for their training. How much work is going to take for this person to perform such training and make sure all those school council follow the board policy?
So through the chair, may I just comment? We always presume positive intentions of both our school councils and our staff. So once the training is provided, our assumption is that the schools are following the policy. We would be doing checks and balances to make sure, just like we check and balance that they follow all policies, but we wouldn't be auditing every single fundraising event to make sure that it was recorded properly. So we would definitely have to provide training on this is how you do it. This is, you have your revenue, you have your expenses, which all go in. They do that accounting anyways on a daily basis right now. It's just how do they account? There's one extra step for accounting for the mandatory donations. They're going to have to be trained on it. Once they're trained, it would be, like I say, not every single function of every single school will be audited each time, because we have many, many, many policies which they are expected to follow every day. And we don't do a check on every single school and every single policy. So it wouldn't be all of them. It would be a random check, just like we do school audits on a number of schools each year.
Okay, understand that. Okay, my next question is through Madam Chair. That is regarding the net income. So can anybody give me a definition of a net income?
Revenue minus expenses.
So through the chair would be the fundraising revenue that was received, and then less all of the expenses that were required in order to run whatever fundraising event takes place. And then that the bottom would be the net income, and that's what the percentage would be applied on. And I also just want to go back to, sorry, to Trustee Pay, to Trustee Dawson's comment about not having enough information. Staff would be happy if this were directed back to provide that information. It's not something that we were asked for. What we were asked for was provided. And then we are asking trustees to make a determination on A or B. If trustees don't feel that they have, if they need more information to make that decision, we'd be happy to take it back. But it's not really fair to say that it wasn't provided today because it wasn't asked for today.
Okay, thank you very much, Associate Director Zucker. Through Madam Chair, my following questions is, what if the net income does not met for the project the school council fundraise for?
So
Do we
through the chair,
take
I'm
a
just, if you're saying that it costs more to run the fundraising event than it did.
No, not the cost more, because it could be like, say, okay, I give you an example. I have our school, okay? They need to repair the instrument. The issue, the principal, they always ask, can school council help us, because the board do not provide enough funding to repair the instrument. So we had to do some fundraising campaign for the school. So we had to raise the target, like say, repairment is going to cost us $3,000, okay? But what if our net income only $2,500? We're not even meet up the requirement to fund that project we're fundraising for. But now the system is going to say, okay, we're going to take every dollar, certain percent, every dollar of that. So we're going to come even shorter than our goal. Is this equitable approach at the board?
Yeah, and through the chair, again, staff is not supporting either option. So staff is just providing you with the information. So I just want to clarify that we're not saying that this is our recommendation. What I wanted to, so in that case, if you were being asked to raise $3,000 for instrument repairs and there was a mandatory contribution of 1%, then in order to be transparent and accountable up front, you would need to say, we need to raise $3,000 for these repairs, but there's also a 1% that we need to contribute towards the mandatory contribution, and therefore we need to raise $3,300. If you don't raise that amount, and you would continue to raise it until you got there, or if you don't raise it, then I don't believe that the contribution would come off until then. So, yeah. Thank you. I was just confirming with Senior Manager Green.
So that's really up to the school council provide the information, right? So that's the reason I'm asking net income. I think the net income should be defined by total money fundraised minus expense minus the project supposed to be fundraised for, and then whatever dollar left, that become net income, right?
Through the chair, I guess that would just become if there are no expenses, then the net income would be whatever income is fundraised.
Yeah, but would you take the project, the fundraise for as a part of expense?
So through the chair, just confirming, you're asking if you were supposed to raise $3,000 and you only raised 2,500, would we be taking a mandatory percentage of that?
That's right.
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, because if the policy was approved for mandatory, for example, if it was 1% and you raised $2,500 towards a $3,000 target, then 1% of that 2,500 would go to the system priority fund. And it would just mean that that $250 would be an additional amount you'd have to raise in your next campaign. But the dollars would come off the gross amounts. And then, because, for example, what we envision in when we say net is that if you are fundraising for a field trip, or you're fundraising for musical equipment, or you're fundraising for library books, that's the end result. The net idea is that if you're doing a fun fair and had to buy bouncy castles or hot dogs, that's the expenses that would come off before the contribution.
Does that make sense? Trustee Page, you have a follow-up?
Yes, I do have follow-up. Okay. So if that's the case, I understand every dollar can be taxed. But to me, that's not equitable, because you tax virtually the income before expense, the actual real expense. But the real expense is really for supporting school project and supporting school for repairs, for tax, for library books or other project, right?
Staff, do you want to respond?
Through the chair, could you please repeat the question?
Because
You could be-
I don't think the net income is really have stuff. I don't agree with the definition of net income from the staff. I think the net income should be the total fund raised minus expense occurred through the fundraising activities and minus the project cost that's supposed to support. After that becomes net income.
So through the chair, that would be the surplus funds approach that we were initially getting the opinion on.
No, that's not surplus fund. That's surplus fund. That's net income I'm talking about. I'm talking percentage of that net income.
Through the chair, the net income would be your revenue minus your expenses.
So that there's a difference of opinion, Trustee Pay, in the definition of net income. I believe net income, as staff see it, is revenue minus expenses, full stop. Anything further?
So okay, so that's net income. You're going to do monetary percentage for that, right? Okay, my next question, I don't want to dwell on this question. My next question would be, does the board have any problem regarding voluntary donations at this moment?
Sorry,
From
could you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, I'm asking, does the board have any problem as a current situation that we cannot raise donations, a call for donation from general public?
Through you, Madam Chair, there's no situation at this point in time on a voluntary basis that cause any concern for the board. We just always, with any fundraising, whether it be school councils or the schools or donations to the board directly, we ensure they're recorded correctly and reported correctly in our financial statements.
So, okay, through Madam Chair, if there's no problem regarding voluntary contribution, why we want to make mandatory?
Trustee Pay, that's a decision for you, me, and our colleagues to determine as part of the policy revision.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Okay,
And your time is up. If you'd
Okay.
like to go back on the list, I'm happy to put you back, but right now we have trustee Patel.
okay, putting me back, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And my question is very simple. And we always rely on staff's best advice. And since, sorry for my ignorance, what is the staff's best advice in this? Because what I'm hearing from staff, they are okay with either or. So an advice cannot be either or. There has to be a best advice for us trustees to make, like what Trustee Dawson said a while ago. It's kind of, this is trustees against trustees. So, I mean, what is the staff's best advice? Please tell me that. I want to hear that from staff.
Thank you for that question. I'll go to Associate Director Zucker.
I'll start in through the chair. That's a tough question for staff, but what staff, we did not have the recommendation for a mandatory contribution in the original policy. And as we were asked to go back and look at this in further follow-up and consultation, the consultation did show that the voluntary was supported by the majority of the people who responded. So I think staff would rely on the results of the consultation in this case, because the people who we asked are the people that are being impacted. Through the chair.
Trustee Patel, does that answer your question?
It does, but it's okay. I'll take this answer. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Anyone else besides Trustee Pay, just to try to be fair, to distribute the questions? Seeing none, then Trustee Pay, please go ahead.
Okay, Madam Chair, I have probably the last question. If we decide to go for mandatory, what the projected number the staff are looking at?
Staff, do you have a total of what was fundraised last year that you could surmise a percentage of?
Through you, Madam Chair, I would say that somewhere between 0.5% to 1%, or would be somewhere where the staff would look to do their analysis. As I said earlier in the questions that were asked, if the option A is selected by the trustees, we will do the legwork to do the analysis, bring that to you back as part of the procedure, and we'll have a better idea of what that looks like as far as impact and at what percentage it should be. I'm cognizant of the Trustee Pay's question earlier around what percentage the costs are of fundraising dollars. So we'd have to take a detailed look at that to make sure we understood what the net proceeds from fundraising were as we work through the procedure.
Anything further, Trustee Pay?
Yes, I do, Madam Chair. Yeah, regarding the 0.5 or 1%, I just did a rough calculation, right? Based on my fundraising activity, experience over a dozen fundraising over 2 years, basically 50% would be minimum cost for us. Okay, so that means if we raise $1,000, then $500 will be the cost. So that also means if the system raises $4 million, $20 million the cost. So the net income will be system-wide $20 million, and then you do the math, 0.1% or 0.5 to 1%. So that's like $100,000, between $100,000 to $200,000. If we put up the number 0.5%, we're not even able to pay the actual staff salary, which is ranged from $120,000 to $150,000. So what the purpose doing that? Even like I say, we say 1%, we're still end up like maybe a negligible surplus between $50,000 to $80,000 per system wide. If we distribute even like say for the 200 schools which needed fundraising, how much is that? $250 and for between $250 and $400. And then we have 60% of those parents telling us they do not agree with us to mandatory. So what's the purpose for really making this mandatory at all?
I think that's really not a question for staff, Trustee Pay. That's up to the board or the committee first to make a recommendation to board. And if you have any other questions, if not, we can get on with the vote.
Hey, Chair, you know what? I want to refer the report back to staff, ask staff to do in-depth analysis. How much net income we're going to generate? Maybe we should ask the school community more widely as well. I want to tag Trustee Dawson's questions. We only have over 300 people, right? We don't even know where they're located. So even though 60% people prefer voluntary, not mandatory. So I want to understand what the democracy is at our board. Do we really want to listen to the parents' voices, or we just make our decision without considering at all?
So Trustee Pay, you
So,
want to refer?
Yeah, I want to, Madam Chair, I want to refer the report back. I want to motion, refer the report back to the staff. Thank you.
To do what? I mean, I think the staff, as Associate Director Zucker said, this report fulfilled what was asked by the staff through board motion. If you are asking other things of staff, I think that would need to be clear in the motion. Just to simply refer it back to staff would not get us further. So can you please think about what actions you would want
I want
to refer it back
number
to
one,
staff?
refer staff, ask the staff to do the report regarding how much net income going to generate from the fundraising.
So
from last
options
year.
for mandatory? Are you asking for options for mandatory fundraising?
Yes.
Sorry, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm trying to clarify.
I'm asking if the board decided for mandatory, right? And also like I'll propose the mandatory option. I want to understand how much system priority fund going to be generated. Also, I want to start doing analysis. If we really propose mandatory, what a decrease of fundraising activity going to happen? What's the number or amount of money going to decrease due to this new policy?
Okay, can I ask if we can take a 5-minute recess so you can write that motion down and send it to staff prior to, prior to a vote, or Madam Chair is back, so I'm going to pass the chair back to Madam Chair.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Up to you.
Okay. Okay, Trustee Pay, can you email to Ms. Joseph Dowers?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm doing it right now.
Also, we would need a seconder.
Thank you.
Are we breaking? Are we recessing? Just 5 minutes? I think that.
Trustees, we just received the motion from trustee Pay. We will be resuming in a minute or two. Just getting ready for put it on the screen. We're just getting it ready for the screen. I telling them get ready to go back and you saying don't, it will take time for them to set it up. We'll do a quick roll call as we get ready to resume. Trustee Arts is in the room, trustee Gauss.
I'm online.
We haven't put it up as yet. She's still preparing it. Trustee Laskin is in the room, trustee Nunziata,
Present.
trustee Pay,
Present.
trustee Raja Kulasingam,
I'm here.
trustee Sriskanda Raja.
Present.
Thank you.
And
Okay.
trustee
I'm here
Patel
as
is
well.
present. Trustee
Trustee
Patel
Shan-
is present.
Keep it
Trustee
down.
Shan is here too.
Thank you.
Did I miss any other trustees? Trustee McLean, I see you there. Thank you. And trustee Williams and trustee King.
Thank you, trustee Williams here.
I'm also back
Trustee
online.
Dawson. Thank you, trustee King. Trustee Dawson.
Present.
Thank you.
Do we have? We have the wording. Yeah, yeah, please. Okay, so we have motion on the floor from trustee Pay, seconded by trustee Nunziata. That the report be referred back to staff. One, to perform analysis of what net income of fundraising activities is for the last year and how much system priority fund will be generated if mandatory with cost considerations. And two, to perform analysis of how much the amount of fund will be decreased if mandatory.
If I may, through you, Madam Chair, for trustees discuss the motion. I don't believe that number 2 would be possible for staff to do, to be able to predict how much, what the impact of mandatory would be in terms of a decrease in fundraising dollars. We'd be needing to predict the behavior of essentially all parents and school councils through their fundraising activities. So while we can look to do analysis in respect of 1, I don't believe that it will be possible to bring information back on number 2.
Okay, thank you.
Through Madam Chair, I do not agree with the director and, comments because I think it's really easy to make analysis for that. Number 1, there's 60% of the parents community do not agree with the mandatory measures, okay? So we can just simply assume 60% of those $40 million, if you say decrease by 1%, how much is that? By 5%, how much is that? By 10%, how much is that? I think we cannot know exactly the number, but we can estimate. But to my mind, I could say this if we introduce mandatory, decrease could be jumped from anywhere from 5 to 20%. That's my candid opinion. Okay, if I'm a school council co-chair, if I put on this mandatory, I'm gonna say forget about it. Okay, and this is not equitable. We're just not gonna move forward. So I think is do estimate the best capacity from the staff. That's what I want to see. Okay. Or if you're not, give me 5%, 10%, 20% scenarios, then we can make a judgment, because the cost here is so significant. $150,000. We're only going to generate $200,000 based on the analysis I'm providing to the board. The difference of $50,000. We'll do this. And ignore 60% of the parents' community voices. To me, this is not acceptable. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you to Trustee Pei. I appreciate your questions, Trustee Pei. I think one of the challenges in this case is that we would not have any comparator, as we're not aware of any other school boards that have implemented this at this point, to be able to have historical numbers from that that board or those boards to be able to draw comparisons here. With respect to the survey results from that are in the report, the respondent rate for who would agree with mandatory and so forth would not be the same as how much that would affect parent behavior. I believe that they're two very different questions. So we could certainly answer the question of if this is the total amount that was raised last year or over the last 2 years, if that were to decrease by 5%, here's what that would be. If that were to decrease by 10%, here's what that would be. But we would not be able to predict that a mandatory requirement would cause that decrease. We would need to implement that practice and have some data to be able to rely on. We would not have that data presently. So it's not that we're unwilling to do that, Trustee Pei. We certainly want to provide the board with information that will be helpful in making your decision, but it's just not possible for us to be able to predict how this requirement would cause parents to behave.
Madam Chair, I really appreciate Director and Candy comment. If we're not able to do the analysis or predict estimate, can we just provide the numbers with certain tier levels, let's say 5% decrease, 10% decrease, 20% decrease, with the cost? Do we generate positive a number of amount of money to the system priority fund, or are going to decrease? That's the question I want to ask. Is that fair?
Yeah, thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Trustee Pei, for that clarification. That's information that we would be able to provide.
Thank you very much, Mr. Director. Thank you, Madam Chair. I finished my questions.
Thank you. On the list, we also have Trustee Lee.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. First of all, I can't believe we're talking about this. Every parent that I've spoken to about a mandatory taxation on parent contributed fund has told me that this is possibly the dumbest thing that we as a board can possibly choose to do. It will decrease total revenue generated. It'll disincentivize parents from contributing. It'll send the wrong message to not only our student population, but also our parent population, and it will hurt our students overall. If there's a funding issue, we should be asking the province to equalize that funding. Parents are paying taxes and then contributing to our school. We should be encouraging that and not putting a tariff on their donations. And team, this is what it is. We're putting a tariff on parent donations. And in this day and age where everyone is saying how bad tariffs are, I can't believe we're proposing this. I know staff, you haven't proposed this, but we need to do everything we can to stop this craziness. On number 2, I think I appreciate, Director, you mentioned how hard it is. But can I ask for your opinion on how difficult it will be to survey the parent councils on how much they think they will reduce in terms of parent-generated funds? And we have historical records on how much each parent council generates, so we can combine their response to us with the funds that they will generate and extrapolate an estimate. Can we do that through you, Madam Chair, to the Director?
It'll take time.
Through you, Madam Chair, to Trustee Lee. Trustee Lee, we could perform that analysis, provided that there is sufficient time provided to do so.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. I think on a matter that is this crazy and could potentially create this level of devastating negative impact to our board, we should take all the time we need to make sure that we understand the exact impact of this decision. Our parents have told us loud and clear that this is the worst thing that we can potentially do. They have asked us not to do this because it will turn off their engagement and their willingness to contribute. We need to be sure. So through you, Madam Chair, to the Director, I urge you to do what you can to get us this information. And I urge through you, Madam Chair, to the mover to not change this motion. We need the information. Thank you very much.
Oh, sorry, next is Trustee Dawson.
Thank you. Through the chair. You know, we're often having conversations about community consultation and what in-depth community consultation looks like. And, you know, one of the things that comes up frequently is the number of survey respondents. And I have seen a much higher response rate to a survey come under much higher scrutiny at this board than with this situation. So let's just bring ourselves back to the fact that there were just over 300 responses to a survey. This is not at all representative of the population at large within our board. I can tell you that when I was knocking on doors during my campaign and even since, I have been explicitly asked by families when this is going to happen. They want to contribute mandatorily to a fund, and they want other schools to do that. I have many of my schools that are already doing something similar, and the request overwhelmingly has been to explore doing this across the board. So this is something that my community by and large supports in terms of the original I guess. So I do not support a referral back to staff. I'm not on this committee, but I do not support this motion. I think that an incredible amount of resources are needed in order to move forward with whichever option we choose. This report currently is already a referral back, I believe. So I do think a decision needs to be made tonight by the board. And, you know, just as a final maybe anecdote, as a lesson to children, I give my kids an allowance, and out of that allowance, they are taught to save some money, spend some money, and donate some money. So I actually think this is an incredibly, incredibly valuable lesson to our students. It is something that I've tried to instill in my children, a sense of charity. And I hope that the outcome today will be an actual decision, and I would be against this referral. Thank you.
Trustee Laskin.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'm also against referrals simply because I don't want staff to do all this extra work. The original policy recommended voluntary. We sent it back to staff to ask about mandatory surplus. putting in a thing about mandatory without mandatory surplus changes the intent of the entire first edition of the policy that came to us. And to Trustee Dawson's point, this is charity. Fundraising at schools is charity. To give a portion to something else is a portion of charity to charity. So I'm not understanding your analogy. I feel strongly, as I think I've made that clear, but it's also pretty clear that the committee members are going to support mandatory. I think we should put it to a vote. I'm going to move a minority report and then we'll have this discussion at the board. I simply don't want staff to do any additional work. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any more? Okay, seeing no more speakers, there's a move in or second, or could we open the vote for this, please? On referral.
Sriskandarajah against.
Trustee Pay in favor?
Trustee Gross against.
Trustee Nunziata in favor.
And against. Patel against.
Trustee Siskandarajah,
Against.
okay, that's been defeated, so we go back to the original options. So can we get the original ones on the screen, please? The two options, please. Oh, there we go. Thank you very much. Trustee Laskin? you have
I'd
a
like
sec-
to move 1B, please, Madam Chair.
Okay, do we have a seconder?
Sorry, Madam
Nunziata.
Chair, is option B?
Yes, please. Yes.
Oh, I second.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Pay. We're having to have discussion, so can we? Yeah, so what's on the floor
And
is
against.
Trustee Nunziata in favor.
Sorry.
Sriskandarajah
Open-
against.
votes up. Oh, no, it's not. Are you ready for the vote? Yes, we are ready for the vote. Yes, please open the vote. Okay, the vote is open.
Sriskandarajah
And
against.
against. And against.
Trustee Pay in favor?
against.
Sorry.
Trustee Patel against.
Trustee Gross against.
Yes, this is, sorry, this is, oh my God. So Trustee Nunziata, Trustee Pay, and Trustee Siskandarajah, I think she was again. Sorry, people are talking over each other. So could we get Trustee Nunziata, Trustee Pay, and Trustee Siskandarajah to reiterate your vote, please?
Trustee Nunziata in favor of B.
Sriskandarajah against.
Trustee Pay in favor? B.
Okay, and that's defeated.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move a minority report, please.
Okay, thank you. We have that.
Madam Chair,
So
can I move?
Yes.
I can still move A now, right?
No, because B was,
What?
B was
B was the
defeated,
choice.
so A won.
Yeah.
hold on. Just-
Okay. Okay, that's fine. If A doesn't have to be moved, that's wonderful.
It would automatically revert to A.
But what we have, sorry.
You don't have to vote again.
There were two parts to it. Oh, only the, only the. So it refers to A. So, yeah, we have a minority. For B. Okay, sorry, we're just gonna take a very quick recess because we have to determine what we're doing with the part C, which is the fundraising policy itself.
It was assumed. It was assumed.
Yeah, I guess the assumption is that. So
Yeah,
I-
we would-
Okay, does anybody want to move option A? And the full wording would be, sorry, that the System Priorities Fund in the revised fundraising policy proceed with a mandatory contribution process and that the revised fundraising policy P021 be approved.
Sorry, why are we voting again? Doesn't it just automatically, we were given two recommendations, we said no to one of them.
The issue, the issue we're facing now is that the policy hasn't been passed at all. So we can also refer the fundraising policy to board without recommendation.
But okay, so we're just voting on the policy now. I'm just confused. Are we voting at seriatim? We already made the decision for the first A or B.
Okay. So we had to pick one of A or B. We didn't pick B. So we still have to move the policy in some format to board. So we have to move it to board with A, or we have to move it without recommendation.
I move it with A.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? And Trustee Shan? Okay. Trustee Shan? A and C? Trustee Sishkandraja seconded by Trustee Shan. Okay, so that's on screen, and could we open the vote, please?
Sishkandraja in favor?
Stan in favor.
Trustee goes in favor.
Hey, against.
Trustee Shan and Trustee Patel?
I'm in favor.
Patel.
Stan in favor.
There, we'll get it. The first one was Trustee Patel.
He was in favor.
I'm in favor.
Thank you. Okay, and that carries.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a minority report to board, please.
Thank you. Okay. Michelle, can you clarify for Ms. Joseph Dowers, what's your minority report?
My minority report was, instead of mandatory, I would like voluntary.
Thank you. And we can have this discussion again in April. Okay, so thank you very much, everybody. That takes us to item 7.2, which is P091, the open data policy review. So this is phase 1 of the review of the policy. It's on page 53 of the overall agenda. And who is speaking to this?
Thank you. And through you, Madam Chair, I'll pass the microphone to Executive Officer Ryan Bird.
Thank you. Good evening, trustees. Through the chair, together with Senior Manager of Research and Development, Dr. David Cameron, happy to present this report. The TDSB shares an extensive amount of data with the public through board reports and presentations, required reporting inside strategic action plans, the Student Achievement Plan, department-specific reporting, data requests to the Privacy Office and the Research and Development Department, school-based improvement planning conversations, and the board's open data webpage. Following the November 6, 2024 board resolution in Appendix B and policy review schedule regarding the review of the open data policy, staff developed the policy review work plan, as you'll see in Appendix C. Under the work plan, public consultations will be conducted with external participants during a 45 calendar day period. As part of the board resolution, staff was also directed to prepare a list of state-of-the-art guiding principles for open data. See, for example, the International Open Data Charter Principles and clear MFIPA-based principles on how to publish data online while protecting privacy and respecting the board commitment to openness, transparency, and accessibility to information, and a review of staff experiences and obstacles to implement the policy in 28 through 2024. Staff have prepared guiding principles, considerations, and complexities surrounding open data policies as outlined in Appendix D. As you'll see in the report, it's these significant considerations and complexities that will have to be further discussed and consulted on during the policy review. And as a result, we anticipate returning with a draft policy in January of the new year, following public consultations this fall. While staff continued to share a significant amount of data, reports, and analysis as part of our commitment to transparency, full data sets have not been previously shared for the reasons outlined in Appendix D, the complexities for open data at the TDSB, which will be considered in the review of the policy. The policy review work plan is provided for the committee's consideration and approval. And with that, Dr. Cameron and I would be happy to answer any of your questions.
Trustee Laskin?
Thank you very much. Through you, Madam Chair, to staff, I'm just wondering about the 45 days. Given the time of year we're in, I'm just wondering if staff feel that's enough time because of the complexities of this and the amount of reading that it will take to understand it. I'm just asking if staff feel 45 days is a sufficient time for consultation.
Through the chair, I think 45 days, we're completely open to extending that if need be. I don't know if Dr. Cameron has any advice on that, whether it's, given your past experience, whether 45 days should be sufficient or whether we extend to a longer period.
Through the chair, yeah, we have extended some consultations out to 60 days, Trustee Laskin, when they're particularly political and contentious. This one has the potential to be so. I think we're open to.
Yeah, we're happy to extend that if the committee would like.
Madam Chair.
I would like to ask staff to move from 45 days to 60 days. And then my second question would be, are we seeking any expert opinion in terms of open data from researchers in terms of best practices for school boards? Because I know when we first did this motion, when Trustee Gershon moved it, a number of years ago, it was fairly unique to have school boards have an open data set on their website. I'm wondering if other boards have caught up. I can see from what was provided, there is some information on that, but I'm wondering if staff will specifically target people for advice through you, Madam Chair, to staff.
Through the chair, we will target particular people. I'm not sure we'll look for a diverse group of folks in terms of when you consider expertise, what that might mean. None of the boards in the GTA have open data policies right now. The reason why school boards, I think, in general, especially in Canada, don't have open data in the way that different municipalities do is because of the sensitivity of the data at the school level in terms of student level narratives and things like that. So we will for sure have an expert partnership group in this particular instance to unpack some of the complicated nature, including Indigenous sovereignty as an example, community narratives around stereotyping, things that came forward in many different parts of our partnership, and we will definitely partner with scholarship.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Trustee Rajakula-Singham.
Thank you, the chair. One thing that I always admire about our board is our research department and all the information that we tend to get through various reports, especially data sets and maps. One thing that I know we've run into in the past is when race-based data is involved. For example, in the student census, usually we get more information about demographic data, but when it comes to, for example, program admission, we've been told that when the sample size is too small, in fear of identifying programs or schools, we tend to avoid demographic data. So in this upcoming policy, would we see any guidelines around, for example, a set sample size of when we could expect demographic data, when we can't? I am being cognizant of some of the risks involved, like racialized students in small classes being identified or reinforcing negative stereotypes. But I think as trustees, it really helps us when we're able to we're aware of when to expect and when not to expect demographic data. So can we see a specific sample size of when to expect that information?
Through the chair, I'll defer to Dr. Cameron on what that may be, but I can say that there would be suppression rules applied depending on the data being provided through the trustee to the trustee. For example, if hypothetically there was 6 as one of those numbers, that would typically be suppressed given the possibility that it may identify a specific student and or group. But Dr. Cameron, did you have anything to add to that?
There's a number of things in that question, I think, that are important to unpack. One is the degrees to which we share race-based data and other gender-based data, other identity-based data markers inside of our central policy program reviews and evaluations. I think I've heard from a number of trustees over the past consultations with the learning opportunities indices that would be a benefit for the board to see more race-based data in terms of central program reviews or evaluations. That's certainly something we've done in the past, and it's certainly something we do, and it fits within the consent form and the collective agreements that we have with our community and with our students in relation to our census data. In terms of open data, though, and open data policy, you'll see when, if you get a chance to read the report, that part of the conception of open data is almost a public laboratory, if you will, where you can go into the databases. They're interoperable, they're integrated. You can do a variety of things with those databases. And in those instances, we're going to be much more careful about what we consider as shareable in open spaces, and especially with databases like that, and at what level it's shareable at. So there's 2 kind of parts to that question in terms of race-based data and how we integrate it in our system to try to understand disparities and disproportionalities in areas that we need to work on for the multi-year strategic plan versus having a data set that just is open and interoperable for anybody in the public to use.
Through the chair, thank you, Dr. Cameron, for that. And just one more question, just because this area is a bit new for me. In Appendix D, it talks about a First Nation Information Center. Is there a similar set of principles we can use for underserved students, not just race-based, but class-based, gender-based, which outlines how data will be collected, protected, used, and shared? Just wondering if that's already exists out there.
Yeah, a really good question. Community-based data principles and methodologies are we've already adopted those. You'll see that in the reports we have on our student census now. It's a really important concept. As an example, when we partnered with the Center of Excellence and work with their Institute of Student Leadership, the Black Student Youth Action Research Program, one of the areas that we've asked students to explore is the use of race-based data and achievement and what that means for their own narratives and their schooling experiences as racialized students in the TDSB. And so those kinds of partnerships are really important in how we are using race-based data, how we present it, and what the kinds and quality of narrative we bring forward when we look at disparities.
Thank you. That's it for me, Chair.
Thank you. Can I pass the chair?
Absolutely. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. So I'm excited for us to engage in this work and look at the best practices. Just a little plug for the City of Vancouver has an open data site that is the prettiest thing I have ever seen. Like, we don't have, like, looking at the kinds of data they're sharing about like roadmaps and, you know, traffic use and stuff, like clearly we don't have all that same kind of data. It's just a really very user intuitive format. That's like one of the ones that's really very nice. I will qualify the statement about school boards not necessarily having open data policies, not just because they are concerned about the data privacy, which is critical, but that they don't have the research staff. They don't have the staff to do this. And like, I just want to clarify that because of the size of the TDSB and the, you know, sheer numbers of staff that we have in any given area, we are very privileged in what we have access to. And I think we forget that. Like, even though I know we are severely understaffed because of our size and then what we have. Years ago, when I was a much newer trustee and I was at an OPSPA event and I was talking about like, oh, could we take this back? You know, could we all take this back to our research staff? And somebody off the side said, ooh, TDSB and their research team. And it gave me, I had to step back and say, oh, wait, like, you know, my ward is bigger than most of the boards in the system. That when we set this, it's great that we can do this, but we're in a place of privilege that most boards will never have this capacity to do. And I don't want to have us, you know, put that onus on boards that simply just don't have that capacity. My one question I have, in addition to the great questions that came before, in terms of data, oh my God, now I'm going to forget what my question was because I'm tired. It was really, that was a good one too. Nope. It was on the types of reports. You know what? I'm just gonna, is there anybody else who have questions? I'm just follow up later.
I'll pass you back to Chair.
Thank you. Sorry, did somebody speak up?
Yes, I did.
Oh, okay, thank you. Trustee Pei, go ahead.
Okay, Mr. Madam Chair, I just want to have some background information. So when this policy was approved by the board? Open data policy originally.
2018, right?
Through the chair, I'm just confirming.
Before 2018,
Yeah. Uh,
because Gershon was on the board. She moved it.
Through the chair, it is 2018.
Okay, 2018. Okay. So, okay, my follow-up question is, that's a different report because my motion, if I read my motion carefully to our trustee and staff, there's two parts of my motion, right? So number one is about phase one review. Okay, we have done that. Number two, I talking about my motion part is like a list of state arts guiding principles for open data and a clear, MFIP, but based the principle on how to public data underline the privacy. Okay, I think we can answer that. What about part two, that a review of staff experiences and obstacles to implementation of the policy in 2018, 2024? So what kind of experience we're talking about here? So what kind of obstacle we're talking about here? I don't think it's really including the report.
So,
I'm
sorry, trustee, could you through the chair, trustee, could you just clarify that the second piece of your motion referenced the experience of
the
staff, I believe?
The staff experience obstacles to implementation of the policy in 2018 to 2024. So I just want to learn what happened last 6 years.
So
why the policy has not been implemented? And so what's the staff really experience obstacles?
Through the chair, we have continued to share a significant amount of data, reports, analysis as part of this commitment and have it in multiple locations on the website. Although as I had shared, full data sets have not been previously shared during that time, essentially due to the reasons that are outlined in Appendix D. And those are the complexities for open data at the TDSB. And the challenges that we face, we really do have to answer some significant questions before we can provide just open data writ large and start posting on the website, to some of the reasons that Dr. Cameron had pointed out earlier. I'll defer to Dr. Cameron if I'm missing anything, but I think the reason why the data sets, as you've highlighted through the motion, were not published as data sets per se. Data and information was provided, but data sets was because of those key questions that really need to be answered and that will be answered through this policy review about what exactly can be provided, so that we're being as transparent as possible, but not providing information which may present a challenge for a number of reasons identified in Appendix D.
So, okay, so I'm asking what kind of staff experiences? I know there's some obstacles, okay? You talk about complexities. I'm asking specific staff experiences. I'm not asking you give me general answers. I want a specific staff experience.
Through the chair, I'm not sure which staff exactly you'd be referring to, but I know that as a number of staff.
Okay, Madam Chair, I am asking the staff who supposed to be implement this policy. That's the staff I'm referring to.
And through the chair, we have discussed this on a number of occasions, especially since we discussed this in the fall at the committee level. And we have talked, and some of that is outlined in Appendix D, but we have continued to present a lot of information on our website through board reports and that kind of thing. But as far as experience is that while we continue to provide, I would argue, some of the most data provided by any school board in the province, that there still continue to be challenges. So I think as far as staff experience, through the chair, I would say that our staff experience is that we have continued to provide a significant amount of data on multiple different channels through the board and committee structure, through the website, through other reports. However, we all feel that there are some significant questions that have to be answered, identified in Appendix D, before we can really take the next steps. And that's speaking specifically to data sets and large amounts of information without any contextual information being dumped onto the website. We want to be able to answer some of those big questions before doing that. I think through the development of this review or through the development of the revised policy, that will help inform those next steps on what data we can provide. We'll get a better idea of what data people are looking for and how we provide that.
Through Madam Chair, with respect, how come we haven't done that for 6 years or 7 years now? Why we not funded those obstacles for last 6 years? Why we're not solving the problem? Why we're still presenting the problem to the public? And you mentioned the information. Information is not data. I understand you mentioned some data. Number is not data. It's not data sets, right? We're talking about data sets here. We talk about inventory data. So just tell me, give me one example. What kind of data sets you have right now? How many data sets do you have right now? Give me an example. How many you have?
I'd have to confirm through the chair, but full data sets of complete information. It's just an Excel spreadsheet providing all the information. We have financial facts, for example, which is filled with data that is reviewed and provided each year as the financial information. But as far as data sets available on the open data webpage, we do not have we don't have full Excel, for example, data sets provided on the open data webpage. Typically, when we provide information, for example, whether it's facility condition index, drinking water test results, a number of other areas, it's on the school landing page, which parents can go to and view the work orders, the facilities issues, drinking water test results, EQAO results through the research department and various other things. It's in various spots on the website, but as far as data sets themselves, it's not something that we have typically provided in the past, believing that the information that we have provided not only on the open data page, but through board reports, committee reports, various other reports, have satisfied our commitment to transparency and data.
I understand you provide financial information on our website, okay? But I'm talking about complete data set. Why so difficult for 6 years or 7 years? This policy is not being implemented, not even for one single data set. Why?
Sorry. Just a reminder through the chair, please. And Director, did you want to speak to?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and through you to Trustee Pei. Trustee Pei, I appreciate your question. It is a reasonable question to ask about progress on implementation of any policy. And to your point, in response to the question you asked, this policy came into effect in 2018, and it is 2025. I think in the intervening years, Executive Officer Bird and Dr. Cameron have spoken to some of the significant considerations for a school board when thinking about what kind of data is appropriate and can be posted in an open data format for public consumption on the website. Though there are some of the same considerations that now need to be really delved into with significant research and through consultation to determine what the move forward may look like. In terms of what has taken place already, I think in as much as I appreciate that you may not be satisfied with the response, the question that staff can, the information that staff can provide to the question you've asked has been provided in the reports that have been posted. I will say, especially coming from another school board and from outside of the TDSB, that TDSB is looked upon as a leader in this area in terms of the kind of data that is collected and the kind of information that is posted through reports. I can say that other school boards and the ministry looks on TDSB's data and relies on the data to inform thinking, decisions, and so forth. In terms of the open data piece, to Trustee Art's point earlier with respect to the examples given for the City of Vancouver, talking about data for roads is a very different kind of affair than talking about data relating to kids and parents, and have to be taken, with some significant consideration. So that's the work that have to be undertaken now. I will say as well, without, or rather appreciating that this may appear to be putting excuses as to the why, that we did have a significant interruption to normal operations during these intervening years through COVID. Which disrupted normal operations and diverted staff attention to making sure that schools could operate and that students could be safe. We are taking very seriously. There's been significant conversation, and we're taking the work going forward very seriously, and will engage in consultation, we'll engage in research, and bring responses back to the board, and a proposal around how we may move forward, accounting for the considerations that have been outlined and any others that may arise in the course of our the work that we're going to undertake. I hope that is helpful, Trustee Pei, but I don't believe that if you should ask the same question that you're going to be able to get any additional information. But we absolutely take your point. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Director. Through Madam Chair. So I want to understand, okay, so currently at the board, what kind of inventory of the data we currently process? Data sets. I'm just a simple questions. What are really processed right now? I think we're sitting on a lot of data. I'll give you an example, okay? We even have the data back into 1980s for student health card number, email, telephone numbers. Because how I learned that? Because Power School was hacked a few months ago. And those are crucial data being leaked. So I just want to understand what kind of data we have right now. What kind of inventory data we really try to prepare here? Because for this policy, 7 years is not being implemented. The only thing we know right now, we know the complexities, we know the difficulties. In other words, we argue that this policy cannot be implemented at all. That's the message, or that's the sense I'm getting from the staff. To say I'm disappointed is understatement. So I want to ask, through you, Madam Chair, what kind of a data set we have right now? To you, Director, what kind of data set we're planning to have as our inventory moving forward?
Thank you, Trustee Pei, and through you, Madam Chair, to Trustee Pei, and I may ask Dr. Cameron to speak to examples of data sets that we have, recognizing that that's a different question to data sets that may be posted. I think we've spoken, Trustee Pei, to some of the reasons why posting of raw data that the board collects, which is very significant, have not been something that the board has moved forward with more than we have indicated. But there's many examples of significant data sets. I believe that in the report, it also states that while data sets may not have been posted with raw data of the kind that you are referring to, there are circumstances where that data is provided. For example, and Dr. Cameron can certainly speak to this, where other researchers under certain ethical considerations and some very clear parameters may be provided, that data to inform research. And I'll turn it to Dr. Cameron to perhaps speak to further examples of data sets that we have, while they may not be posted, and ways in which that raw data may be provided under certain circumstances. Recognizing, Trustee Pei, that in the go forward, the question that you're asking and the disappointment that you've expressed will be what will be informing how we move forward. Finally, I'll say, Trustee Pei, that I hear your disappointment. I receive your feedback, and I hope that the information that is being provided to you is helpful. And again, recognizing that we may not be able to provide you information that is going to completely satisfy all your questions and allay your disappointment to the extent that we would like to. Over to you, Dr. Cameron.
Thank you, and through the chair. We have, as Trustee Pei, as you know, because you have participated in lots of data conversations with me, we have lots of data. Our data, we collect all sorts of data, from enrollment extract data, which is including attendance data, all the way out through report card data, achievement data. There's anything that's digitalized that's available. We're very, school boards are very data rich spaces. They're not, in terms of when you're asking for a data set, they're in data warehouses, and they're in a variety of different safe spots in terms of places where we store data. We don't have any data sets that are that were prepared for this particular policy, because the data that we're collecting is under certain consent rules and under certain partnership with community, with students, with parents, and with a variety of different organizations in which we are abiding by the agreements that we have established with them in terms of use of data, what it's used for, what is your data used for, and how are we proposing to use it. Those kinds of things are part of open data, and open data, that's why open data is there's a lot of tension in open data, because some of the things around default open data don't abide by the same kinds of things around, say, consent for our First Nation communities, consent from our parents or our students, and so on. So it's complicated in that sense. The open data policy was interpreted by staff that, to my knowledge, and Executive Officer Bird can confirm or correct, as best as it was interpreted to abide by transparency and accountability alongside all the other the ways we report and partner with scholarship and data request forms, as a means through which to follow the general direction of open data, but also interpret it in a way that would accommodate the partnerships and the agreements and the consents we have. And that's where this policy is complicated, in the sense that we're consulting and thinking about not only what data, what level of data, and what is available and what should be available in terms of something like an open data policy.
Trustee Pei?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Director. Thank you, Dr. Cameron. So I understand there are complexity regarding the data sets, but I still try to figure out why. What's the reason we're not being implemented this policy for 7 years? I understand your question regarding all the difficulties, all those privacy issues. But why there for last 6 years there not been have anybody thought about to solve those problems? Why those problems still lingering for 7 years? And
Trustee
still,
Pei, Trustee Pei, your time is up.
Okay, come back. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair, and through you to Trustee Pei. Trustee Pei, the policy was implemented I appreciate your dissatisfaction with the status or outcome, and I think that all we'll be able to do is reiterate to you what some of the challenges and some of the considerations have been, and what our process going forward is going to be to address the important considerations and bring back proposals to the board for how the policy may be revised and then further implemented. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thanks. I have my question, but I can't pass the chair.
Why
Okay.
not?
I remembered my question, so I'm gonna ask it. So with this review, we have tons of reports. Those reports are online or on school websites. Like, there's tons of data. I have always been able to get the data that families want, especially, thank you for bringing up the lead, like the lead levels, facility condition index, the school facilities things, the ventilation data and information has been really great in its presentation. Most of the reports that we get wouldn't fit, regardless of what they are. The kind of annual reports we're getting from different departments don't fit in their format to the kinds of open data sets that are also posted. And some of them could be. However, I will say the open data set, like in a table, a mineable spreadsheet, is not what parents are looking for. This is not a parent-friendly format. I honestly, the people I know that I've interacted with over the last 6 years, who are wanting or needing access to mineable data from our system, are researchers who have gone through an ethical approval process, have a research proposal, and they get all the access that they need to the data that they need. So I'm not worried about them. Like, they get that. We need a balance, which is like why I like the City of Vancouver website, because there's multiple different sets of data. I honestly don't think, I think maybe I've heard from one person in 6 years who didn't have ethical approval to have access to our data, who wanted access to our data. Like, that in that format, parents want something that is, layperson friendly and facing them, so they know, so they can ask, what is the water, what are the lead levels in the water at my kid's school? That's what they want to know. So, but we have lots of reports. I'm just, one of the ones that comes to mind in terms of an annual report is Caring and Safe. So that report is not a mineable data format. And it could have attached to it. The report is fine, but it could have a data set that could also be tabulated attached to it. So with the whole policy review, are we going to look at the change in how our reports are prepared and presented?
Through the chair, yes, that will be something that we will look at through our policy review. I will say that, for example, Caring and Safe Schools, the annual reports and the Human Rights Office annual reports are available on our open data webpage. But to your point, as far as the data sets, now Caring and Safe Schools, you're getting into student discipline, and then the suppression rules start kicking in. So that sometimes can be difficult to provide sometimes. But yeah, that we're going to be looking at that. And I do think, and we've talked about this as a team previously, is that every single department in this board provides some rich data within reports submitted to committees and board. I think what we need to be able to do is, how do we highlight that in an easily readable way and in a way that we think parents may want to see? And that's something that we've done previously, is try to provide this information in an easily digestible way. So you can go onto your child's school website and look exactly what work orders are there, what the water testing is, and try to provide that. But we will be looking at how we can turn some of our existing data. Can that be provided in data sets? And if it were, what would that look like? keeping in mind the complexities and challenges highlighted in Appendix D.
Thank you.
And if I may, through you, Madam Chair, I think that this also gives us the opportunity, and your question was a really great setup, for this, for us to think about the ways in which information is presented, not just what information is presented in order to meet our objective, or rather objectives for the various audiences that we need to communicate with, parents being key. So in addition to looking at information that's presented numerically or in a narrative form, having a conversation recently with one of your colleagues who talked about, for example, charts and graphs and just different ways of making sure that we think about who needs the information, what's the best way for them to access that information, and what's the best way for to tell the story of TDSB and the way TDSB is doing. So this is all something that can be considered in relation to the question that you're asking, and I think there's a perfect opportunity to think about all of that.
That's great. Thank you. And I think for a lot of our caregivers in our system, who would be, our primary focus, responsibility to communicate to, that telling the story, providing also formats that tell the story are much more useful for them to take in that information and understand the system. So, okay, thank you very much for that. Sorry, nobody else? So Trustee Pei?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, may I ask the staff, do we have a data in terms of enrollment number for each individual school, like class sizes for each individual school? What's the resources, how many teachers or vice principal, administrators being provided school? Yeah, something like that. That kind of data set is like, do the board really have that? If the board have that, why is not published on the website? I don't think that's really have any issue impinge on the complexities what presented by this report.
Through the chair, I know that we obviously have that data within our systems, but I don't believe there is a current file, for example, that has been cleared for public release. The difficulty when you're talking about enrollment is that it changes from day to day. So whatever document we would create, for example, with that on class sizes, number of kids at a school, number of staff, it is so fluid that the second that it is provided, it would be inaccurate because it's such a fluid number. So just to the trustee, speaking to that specific issue, I think that's one of the challenges. But we have a lot of data within our systems. It's just a matter of what to be able to pull a report, make sure that all the considerations are taken into account, whether it be privacy and confidentiality and that kind of thing. It's a matter of how we present that. But we have, obviously in our systems, we have a vast amount of information. It's just a matter of how we display that and what information would be provided. Through the policy review, some of the questions that we're asking is, we know that we have that data, so now how do we provide that? Do we provide that in an open data set way? Do parents want to see it that way? Is there another way that people want to see that? And how do we make that accessible that meets all the concerns and challenges raised in the report, but meets our commitment to transparency and accountability?
Okay, so Madam Chair, may I ask the staff through you? So October 31st, do we really provide those enrollment number, teacher allocation, class sizes, those data to ministry?
Yeah, so for example, through the chair, on our open data webpage right now, we have elementary class size summaries, and that is the ministry attestation to class size commitments as outlined by the ministry. That's a summary. And then we also have on our open data page currently elementary class size statistics, which then lays out the data that is provided to the ministry so that they can be assured that we are meeting our commitments and expectations by the ministry. That's one of the items currently available on our open data webpage.
So there's a data sets I'm asking raw data, or are you talking about average data?
So this, through the chair, this would speak specifically to elementary grades and class sizes. It speaks to caps, and it's an attestation that we provide based on October 31st numbers to the Ministry of Education. So it's not it doesn't lay out, for example, 579 schools and lays out exactly what the class sizes are. It's an attestation from a system level that provides a breakdown of if we are meeting our commitments under the Education Act and the expectations laid out by the Ministry of Education.
So basically, through you, Madam Chair, we do have the data sets, but we just don't want to give the public. What's the reason for that?
Well, again, through the chair, as identified, when it comes to enrollment class sizes, the second they are released, they are inaccurate in the sense that it is a fluid number throughout the school year. So we haven't typically provided that, just given the fact that we would literally have to have someone update it each day of the year for it to be accurate. So that's why we haven't in the past provided data sets of that nature. Again, though, as part of the policy review, we're happy to look at what people want and look at how we can possibly provide that data and in what form.
Madam Chair, I don't think this policy asking for every day's data. It's asking specific data, specific data sets. So why don't you just provide October 31st number, which you provide the ministry, and then present the data to all the parents, tell them, this is number we have for currently date and currently number of students enrolled, class sizes, teacher allocated, admin allocated. Why don't you just provide data? I understand that all the data is variable every day, but we don't have to do that. We just need to provide a snapshot for that moment. The data we provide to ministry, because ministry doesn't ask like a day-to-day data from us either. Why we just provide that data size? Very simple. I just give you an example because I do say, okay, you're talking about your experience, difficulties. Understand, I appreciate that, but I try to come up with a solution here to solve the problem.
Thank you.
I want an answer for that. Thank you.
Thank you. And through you, Madam Chair, to Trustee Pei. Trustee Pei, good question you're asking. Thank you for the question. That is not information that or data set, a data set that has historically been provided. To your question around what is posted, as Executive Officer Byrd has mentioned, regarding the October 31st data. It is in summary form. It is what the ministry requires. It is what is submitted to the ministry and has been posted publicly for public consumption. The question about the raw data per school and or across the system, so forth, that's certainly something that we can take back and consider as we work on further review of the policy and look at other data sets alongside as well. So happy to take that back, Trustee Pei. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Mr. Directors. Through Madam Chair, my follow-up question is, what other data sets we can have which are provided to the ministry?
So,
Because-
Trustee Pei, can I just clarify that is part of the review process to determine what kinds of, also through feedback, what kinds of reports the community public would like to see?
I understand, Madam Chair, but I also understand, appreciate the staff experience difficulties, obstacles here. So I try to understand why we can provide the data to the ministry, why we cannot provide the data to the public. Why is we're not impinge on or infringe on anything regarding privacy. So I just understand we do have the data sets, less the enrollment data, teacher allocation, class sizes. Why we're just not present data sets on our website. Why not?
Through you,
So
Madam Chair.
like we're talking about it, we cannot do it. Staff tell me, oh, we cannot do it. But all of a sudden, the staff's telling me that they have the data sets, they can do it. So I understand what other data sets we're sitting on. What kind of inventory of data set we have right now? Why we not just present it? Be transparent, be accountable.
If I may, Madam Chair, Trustee Pei, respectfully, I must say that I don't appreciate the tone of this last question. I think it's suggestive of subversive behavior on the part of staff. And I don't believe that that's appropriate or acceptable. And I say that respectfully, Trustee Pei. I have appreciated your questions so far. We have responded. And we, in fact, agree with you, Trustee Pei, that there are many data sets that exist. Many data sets that we work with as staff, some data that is provided to the ministry, others that we work with internally for a variety of purposes. I will also reiterate that we provide data in the form that I think you are advocating for should be provided publicly. We provide those, again, within certain ethical frameworks to researchers who work through required process to get that data. The process that we're going to undertake in the review of this policy, including consultation, will inform what data sets may be provided, considering all of the factors that have been outlined, including privacy, including certain other considerations that are outlined in the report. So we fully agree with you, Trustee Pei, about the existence of many data sets. What I took exception to was any suggestion that staff has been hiding information. As I mentioned before, I think the TDSB had a very, very strong reputation of providing many reports that the public and various entities have come to look to and rely on. So I don't believe that this would be a board that would be sitting on data. I think the board has led in that regard. But we are happy, Trustee Pei, to take your question back and consider in the review of the policy. And I hope, Trustee Pei, that you can accept my response with the full respect that it was said with, and that you can receive what I said as feedback as well about the way that we want to communicate with you going forward. Thank you, Trustee Pei, and through you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Director. But unfortunately, I think you misinterpreted my way asking questions. I never implicate that it's the staff hiding the data. I'm just asking, make a recommendation, suggestion to the staff to think more openly. What kind of set of data we can provide to the public? Because the board, according to the policy, we own the public for transparency, accountability. Understand, some of the parents may not can read the data or want to know the data, but some parents may do, right? I have a constituents who are university professors. They're really interested in learning the data. I have a
Trustee Pei, your time is up.
Okay, Madam Chair, can you put me back?
Yeah, do we have, before I go to third round, does anybody else have questions? Okay, Trustee Pei? No. Oh, sorry, Yalini? Right, Trustee Rajagoolasingam? Oh, that's an our older one, sorry. Okay, no, Trustee Pei?
Okay, Madam Chair, thank you very much. So I never implied the staff is hiding any data from the public. I'm just trying to understand what the difficulties the staff is facing. I try to help the staff to overcome those obstacles, to think more openly about what kind of data set we can really provide to the public to ensure transparency, accountability of the board. Because that's the whole mandate for this policy, which was approved by the board 7 years ago. I have greater difficulties and to understand why this policy is not implemented for 7 years, why we're still experiencing all the difficulties, all the complexities. I thought those questions should be answered when the board approved that the policy.
So Trustee Pei,
yes,
you've asked that same question multiple times, and staff have answered that. I'm sorry, you keep saying that that staff are not posting data, and they have answered they are. Data has been posted. The intentions, I think maybe there's a disconnect between what the current request is for data versus what was passed in 2018. So there's lots of other ways. I get that you are referring to specifically mineable data in a, like, researchable mineable data. And staff have clarified that it doesn't matter how badly somebody wants that data. Not all of it is ever going to make it to the website, because we can't release student-based or personal data to the public without the ethical approval and the approval of the people that gave us the data in the first place. So that will have to change going forward. So staff already defined that. They're going to look at how to change to what I believe is your current expectation. But sorry, going back in time at this point, you've asked the question multiple times, staff have answered multiple times. Could I ask you to move on to any further requests or changes to the report that's in front of us? So there's a report for the data review for consideration for public consultation and questions. Do you have any specific comments, considerations that you would like staff to take into effect going forward?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not asking any data, because what I'm asking for a data sets, okay? Because this policy about data sets. It's not about like individual data or aggregated data, okay? So for data sets, raw data, okay? So it's just for public information, for public to do their research, to do their analysis, to try to understand, appreciate what kind of work we have done for the public. So on that point, I want to move motion. Refer this report back to the staff. I'm asking the staff to generate report about what the data sets the board can prepare for next
That's part of the review.
TPC meeting.
That's part of the review.
That's the review.
Sorry, Trustee Pei.
Yep.
That request is part of the review. That is already in the review. The types of data sets that could be produced, staff are going to do that. That's part of what they're proposing.
Okay, they're proposing. Okay, when they're going to do it? How long is going to take them?
Can you please refer to the policy review document? It has a timeline in it.
Through Madam Chair, may I just ask the staff? What's the
Sorry,
timeline?
are you asking which page?
I asking like when the data set is going to be ready. What type of data set the board is thinking they can provide to the public?
Sorry, could you clarify the timeline for the policy review?
Sorry, through the chair, we will be consulting prior to the policy review, before we provide a draft policy that would go out for consultation, together with Dr. Cameron and other staff in the board, we want to consult with experts to determine what that would look like prior to sending out that consultation, that's why we've allowed additional time to consult with those experts prior to going out to public consultation in the fall. Once that, I believe will extend to 60 days. Once those days are complete, we would then come back with a draft policy, and then we could potentially speak based on that policy what kind of data sets may be able to be provided. But we wouldn't be coming back with a specific list of here's what we will provide. We would be coming back with the draft policy for approval, and if approved, we would then action that policy.
So your timeline right now.
Would be in January of 2026 is when we anticipate coming back following a fall public consultation. In January 2026, we would come back with a draft policy for approval at this committee and then on to board.
And then that draft policy will determine how data is collected, gathered together, and then presented.
Through the chair, yes. That would inform what kind of data we would then provide as a result of that policy. In the meantime, though, we were happy to take that back and look prior to that, we can look at what data sets may be able to be provided as part of our review of the policy.
Okay, is that clear?
Through Madam Chair, it's not very clear. I still don't understand the rationale why we're not taking action right now to implement the policy. Because, I mean, the data I just mentioned to the director, I don't think it really have any issue with privacy information, because we're just asking general numbers, enrollment numbers, you know, and the teacher allocations, right? We're general information. I just understand our supporting staffs. I give you an example. Avondale Public School, one of my schools, have over 1,000 elementary K-8 students. I think the number last time they presented me is like around 10,057. But for that school, they only have one caretaker for the whole day.
This has nothing to do with anything.
Of course, this is because people want to understand why a school with 1,000 students from K-8, they only have one caretaker.
It's not open data.
This is open data because that's a supporting staff. We want to know how much supporting staff for certain school size, right? And then give me an example. For RA, they have over 2,000 students. They also have one caretaker as well. I just don't understand why, when we're talking about LOI consultation, I think that the parents are supposed to know that the data, right?
Trustee Pay, your time is up, and you want to take that, Mr. Director?
Yes, thank you. And through you, Madam Chair, and I may ask Associate Director Zucker to add comments here as well. Trustee Pay, I will say that with respect to the example that you gave, I'm not sure that the open data policy would necessarily answer that specific a question with respect to a particular school. But we are certainly happy to take that back and consider that along with the other considerations in the policy review process and what we will bring back. Associate Director Zucker.
Thank you, and through the chair, and I'm just trying to provide a little bit of clarity and from my dive into this area as well. So when the policy was passed in 2018, I believe at the time the board was receiving a lot of requests with regards to facility information. And so in order to address the facility information, the director at the time wanted to be able to put the information on a website and let everybody go to the website and take a look at it. I think that the TDSB's responsibility to the public is to be able to provide information that they need in order to make decisions with regards to their students. But again, that's what will be determined through the policy review. So if I was a parent, I would want to go have as easy access as possible to the data. And I would go to my school's website and I would look and I would see their FCI and I would see any information about them, who the principal, how many vice principals there are, how many office staff there are. So that information is available on their website. And it is available on all 583 school websites. So if somebody did want to do that comparison, they could. But we haven't heard from people saying that they want to do this comparison for the reason, for the purposes of improving their educational experience and gaining knowledge about their schools. So I guess when we were looking at it originally, and I wasn't here, but it really was about who are we serving, which is our students and our parents, and how do we best provide them with the information. And best providing them their information is not in a comma delimited file that they'd have to search through to find information about their specific school. So that is how we looked at data at that time. There are researchers and other people in the community who do want to have access to all of that information in a way that's easy to look at. And they have the ability to go through our research department, to be able to work with our research department. And when the rationale for requiring that information aligns with the reasons that we collected the information, then they're happy to share. And we have shared it multiple times with multiple researchers. So again, I don't think it's about the original policy when it came out wasn't about open data in its true sense that I think that we're looking at it as a researcher. It was about being open with our data. And I think those are two very different things. It wasn't about providing as much data as we could spit out on one website. It was about how are we transparent with our information? How do we provide our users, parents, students, with the information that they need access to? And whether it's through reports, whether it's on the school website, that's where we were providing it. And again, we still do have an opportunity for researchers or people who want to use the data as a whole to be able to look at it. What we don't want to do is provide information that that shares information in a negative light towards some of our marginalized communities, and that risk is there. And so that's the things that we have to weigh. Providing that information or stigmatizing some of our communities, how do we provide the information that is transparent but makes sense? And so those are all the things that we have to consider. And those are all the things when we go out for the consultation to the public, those are what we're going to ask them. What do you use this data for? Why do you need it? How can we help provide it in the most accessible way possible so that we can be as transparent and open as possible to the users that need that information in order to make decisions with regards to their students. Because again, we are serving TDSB students. We are not providing this information necessarily to the broader community when it's nice to have that information and to be able to do all kinds of comparisons, but they're not actually using that information to make a decision about the TDSB students.
Okay, thank you, Associate Director Zucker. Through Madam Chair, may I ask the staff, okay, when the entire open data directive went into effect?
So when did it go into effect? The policy was passed in 2018, so I assume it was shortly after that the webpage was created?
No, I'm talking about the ministry open data directives to all the school board when that went into effect.
Through the chair, we're just looking right now. We know one version of it was brought in 2019, and then it would appear.
Sorry, if I may,
Sorry.
sorry for interrupting, Executive Officer Byrd. I do not believe that the Ministry of Education has given a directive to school boards regarding open data. I believe that there is a provincial a directive of some kind that, to our understanding, applies to the provincial government and provincial agencies, but does not apply to school boards. I hope that answers that question, Trustee Pei. Pardon me, and through you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay. So would that possible, this open data policy is based on that kind of directive or policies by the province?
Through you, Madam Chair, as I mentioned, Trustee Pei, there is not a directive by the province to school boards. The policy, I think, was created in the context that Associate Director Zucker mentioned around creating transparent, providing information transparently and not necessarily as defined by the term open data as we're using it today. And the policy was implemented at the direction of trustees and in response to the need that was articulated at that time. We are now approaching review of the policy in the way that has been outlined in the report, Trustee Pei, but it is not in response to a provincial directive that applies to school boards.
Okay, through Madam Chair, may I ask the director if WRDSP have the same open data policy like TDSP?
Through you, Madam Chair, that's certain information that we can take back. Part of what we would be looking to do on Trustee Pei is a jurisdictional scan, including all school boards and other entities, such as other governments and so forth. And we would certainly be considering where WireDSB and other GTA boards are in respect of open data considerations.
Thank you, Mr. Director.
You're welcome, Trustee Pei.
Okay, through Madam Chair, through you, may I move a motion based on this report, based on your raising?
What is your motion?
My motion is be resolved that the staff private report about what the data sets we have currently right now have in the inventory, and what data set we can put up on the website in the June GPC meeting.
Is that something that can?
Through
Yeah. Okay, no, go ahead and hold on. We're sorry.
Through the chair, we're happy to look at that. The difficulty is, again, as outlined in Appendix D, is there's a number of considerations that we would have to consider so we can look at the data that we have available, but then we would essentially have to, and I'll defer to Dr. Cameron if I'm mistaken, we would then have to run it through the considerations outlined in Appendix D, whether it be privacy, the other pieces of information within the Appendix D that is outlined. We'd have to look at that. Again, though, the policy review process was intended to provide feedback on what people wanted, what data sets, what information people wanted to view. And we were hoping to achieve that through the policy review process.
So, okay, through Madam Chair, I don't get it. It's like, I understand, like if we have a policy for 7 years, I understand that the difficulty we're facing right now. I gave the staff 3 months of time to come up only about what inventory data sets we have, number one. Number two, what the data set the staff think they can present or put up on the website. I'm asking for report. I'm not asking the staff actually do it. So I don't think that would be difficult, right? For 90 days?
Through you, Madam Chair, Trustee Pei, I will leave the procedures for considering your proposed motion to the experts in governance and to the chair. In respect of what you're asking, I believe that we have answered that question, that would be something considered through the policy review process. What is before trustees are considerations for informing the policy, which is in the purview of trustees. And that's what we were hoping to go back with, is direction to actually implement the plan, to consult and bring revised policy back to trustees.
Sorry, can I clarify? Sorry, Trustee Pate, are you essentially trying to get at a motion that makes staff throw data up on our website right now?
No, I'm not. Sorry, Madam Chair.
Okay.
I'm asking the staff providers report that indicating what kind of data sets we currently have in our inventory and what a data set we can provide to the public and put them on the website. So it's basically report. I'm not asking they implement or putting the data set to the website now. Okay, I'm asking the report. Okay, I'm searching for possibility. What a data set we can provide it to the public.
May I ask a question, Madam Chair, through you to
ahead.
Trustee Pei? Trustee Pei, can you clarify what the purpose of that report would be and how it would be helpful to the policy development process?
Because, basically, through Madam Chair, Mr. Director, basically, I want to understand what kind of data sets we see on at the board. And what's the data set that we can really provide to the public to ensure transparency and accountability? Because a lot of parents asking me why their school have less supporting staff. I could not answer the questions. Very simple, right? Because I think if the parents, they're asking whether their school being treated fairly, right? The question, I think at the board is really have a very important principle, which is equity. I think the parents ask me is about equity questions, but I cannot answer. So I think that data sets, which I mentioned in my previous questions regarding enrollment, facilities, and staff allocation would answer that questions. So I'm just asking very simple question: what data sets we have right now? What data set we can really present to the public for 90 days?
Okay, thank you, Trustee Payton, through you, Madam Chair, and I will certainly invite my colleagues to chime in on this as well. Trustee Pay, I believe that the questions that you've indicated are coming to you are questions that can be actually quite quickly and easily answered. If those parents should contact the principal or the superintendent regarding the staffing allocations in individual schools. A number of reports are also provided to the Board of Trustees around enrollment. We've just gone through a process of allocating staff to schools for the upcoming school year. Trustees gave direction on that based on information that was provided. So I don't believe, Trustee Pay, that we would also want to be providing or setting up a situation that is going to use the term that Associate Director Zucker used earlier, further marginalize some school communities by inviting certain types of comparisons without a context in which that can be really well understood. And one of the advantages of providing reports in the forums that have been provided so far, that it allows staff and the board to consider context in which the data is provided, to understand the why that certain decisions might be made. I will also use the opportunity to articulate the fact that trustees have very recently approved a multi-year strategic plan that that says very clearly that equity is the foundation on which the priorities moving forward are based, along with truth and reconciliation. So I just want that to be considered in the way that we are moving forward. I do not believe, Trustee Pei, that coming back with a list of data sets in the kind that you are referring to is actually going to be helpful to the kind of situation that you have mentioned. And I would certainly invite parents that are asking those questions to contact the principal, the superintendent, or the board.
Through Madam Chair, I do appreciate, Mr. Director, mentioning some of the data he thought is may not be provided information or necessary information to the public for their to comprehend how complex the issue for our as the biggest school board of the country. But also at the same time, I think we all have to appreciate the public want to form their own opinions. They want to do their own research. They want to understand how we operate our schools. So why we just provide the raw data to them? Tell them we're transparent. You can analyze it. You can make your recommendation. You can make your suggestions, because we're here to improve our education system. So I think that provide the raw data is just so important to the public. That's the public calling for. That's a policy being approved by the board 7 years ago. But we still have not been able to implement. So I really wish the staff can reconsider my motion and provide the report in time. So we as trustee, we can understand what a set of data sets we're sitting on, what kind of inventory we have, and what does data sets we can present to the public. So I'm not asking too much here. I'm just simply asking for a report for the staff to prepare, to present the trustees, for us to make the right decision for the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you to Trustee Pei. Trustee Pei, I think it's been observed by a number of trustees that there are certain pressures on limited central staff time. I will say that I'll save that comment for another time, and I just revise my thinking. I believe Trustee Pei that I have responded that the kind of information that you're asking for is information that would naturally be considered in the course of the policy review and development process, and we believe is most appropriate to come back within that context as opposed to outside of the policy review and development process. I offer that for trustees' consideration. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Director. So, Madam Chair, may I move my motion?
You need a seconder?
Can Trustee Nunziata second me? Or any other trustees?
So that fails for want of a second, but I believe I just heard the director offer to consider providing more information as part of the review process.
That is correct, Madam Chair, through you.
Okay, Trustee Laskin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move that the policy work plan for the open data policy as presented in the report be approved.
Thank you. And I need a seconder. Thank you. Thank you, Trustee Rajkulusingham. Can we open the vote, please?
Trustee Pei against.
Trustee Gross in favor.
Trustee Nunziata in favor.
Yeah, Trustee Sishkandaraja, Trustee Patel, Trustee Shan. Trustee Sishkandaraja. Yeah, sure.
Sishkandaraja in favor.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That carries. The next item on the agenda is number 8, and it's adjournment. Can I get a mover? Thank you. And I'm going to second that one. Trustee Laskin. I'm going to second that one. And all those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye. And any opposed? Thank you very much, everyone. Big thank you to staff for my lovely setup here today, and Trustee Ghost for coming into Vice Chair, and everybody's reports. And have a safe travel home and a good evening.
Thank you.
We are adjourned.